Well, hello there, and welcome to the Weekend Update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Well, I guess what? You got the Epstein files making the rounds again, talking about that. And there's Erica that's, well, did you hear about Turning Point in Cincinnati, on the university there?
Yeah, the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You heard how they notified him?
I just heard it was abruptly and
email. It was an email.
Email?
Yep. They sent this the Turning Point chapter of the University of Cincinnati an email saying you're no longer a certified club. Goodbye. And by the way, those events that you've scheduled in facilities on our campus, we're going to charge you rent for those. I mean, talk about. I mean, they wouldn't do that if it was a left-leaning organization, but because it's conservative.
A trans organization.
Oh, no, they never would do it if it was a trans organization. No. They would accommodate. When I read the statistics that says 94% of all professors on college campuses today are left-leaning, progressives.
Yeah.
That explains it.
But do they have the authority, those professors, to sit there and say, you're not certified to be on this campus. You want to be here, you got to pay to be here.
Well, I think you're assuming they're being fair, and I think that they're not. I think that when they're in a position like on a campus like that, they're not only acting as a professor, but they're also trying to influence the whole school with their own personal philosophy.
Well, what I'm saying is, they don't own the school. They work for the school. They don't have a say in this hunt. And, they were hired to teach a course, which they're putting their own spew and spin in there of vulgar do's. I mean, they're twisting everything.
Bill, if the president's a leftist and the vice chancellor's a leftist, and if your department has a leftist, and everybody in the chain of command in the school is a progressive leftist, they're not going to side with the conservative. You're going to say, hey, this really isn't a good idea to have it on campus. I think you're right. Boom, they're gone.
Yeah, all mine hair. So you know what?
Yeah.
If you're not that way, stay the hell away from Cincinnati University and other schools like it. In other words, they're indoctrination camps, and that's all they are.
Yeah, the real big, there's a couple of things. I wanted to play something first that is kind of interesting. Glenn Beck was having a conversation with Erica Kirk. I guess it was last week. And on Glenn's podcast, he talked about something which he thought was very interesting. Listen.
I was flying yesterday and I thought, what are the odds that this amazing spiritual giant who had been prepared, I think, his whole life to do what he did, is smart enough to run a large operation, has the spirit with him, knows how to argue, knows how to do everything he does, marries a woman who is exactly like that. I mean, she said to me last week, we had a conversation. She said, I think Charlie prepared me for this, and I didn't even know it. She said he's got stacks of diaries. He wrote a diary every day. And she said, I never read his diaries. I mean, that's not something you do. But after he died, I went in and I started going through his diaries. I was reading the last few pages and everything else. She said, I started reading him. She said, he left me the plans for 2028. He left me the budgets for the future. She said, he left this for me. And she is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, TPUSA is in really good hands, I think, with her. But here she is in one of the most Christ-like moments yesterday at the memorial service, talking about the shooter of her husband.
And then he goes into the audio clip, and we don't have that. But I thought that was fascinating. He was putting plans together in case he's not there.
Right.
And she apparently was completely blindsided by this. She had no idea that he was doing this, yet when she looked at the diaries, it was organized. step by step, what to do. Here's the budgets. Here's what we're going to do in 2028. I guess talking about the presidential elections. I thought that was fascinating. You know, maybe this young man was truly inspired by God. Maybe he felt something might happen, and just in case, I've got to prepare my people for this.
Well, you would have to anyway. I mean, to work the way that he did and do what he did, you would have to have a detailed plan. How you got that plan, you know, that's something that we could debate for hours, days, weeks. Did he have divine intervention? I think he did. But the simple fact is, you know, I think that to do what he had to do, he had to have a roadmap. So he wrote down the roadmap. What inspired him to write down the exact explicit details that he's got? You know, I think that's where the divine intervention comes in. And so I don't find it surprising that he did it. I think that both of them were chosen. You know,
well, actually, I am kind of surprised that he was that organized. I mean, I do believe the guy was maybe chosen to do something special, but to be so detailed with his plan for the future, and to make it so that if he's not there, they know where to go. I think that's very special and probably inspired by God. You know.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would worry me is that now that that's known, that's all that is there. Would the left not want to sit there and get that and tie it up and destroy it, lose it?
Well, then
do something to it.
They're going to have to break into the Turning Point USA.
Well, they killed Charlie.
Yeah, well, that's true. But Charlie was out in the open. Charlie was out in the middle of the enemy territory, actually. He was in the middle of a college campus. It'll be different breaking into TPS, Turning Point USA's headquarters.
Well,
you know?
I'm saying, you know what? Guard it. They need to guard it. Charlie guarded with his life, but now they all have to, because the left will stop at nothing to, and I'm not saying, you know, everyday people, but whoever is in charge and control that's taken over that undergrowth that's consumed that party, they'll stop at nothing.
Well, time will tell, but I think that Glenn was right when he said he thinks that Turning Point is in great hands with Erica. You could just, every time she spoke publicly, it was thoughtful, articulate. It wasn't a grieving widow. She was grieving, but she wasn't out of control, and she was still focused. I think she must have felt that Charlie would have wanted her to be a certain way. And when she went out in front of the public, she wasn't falling apart. She was in control, which I thought was incredibly incredibly special. You know, I mean, it wasn't something that everybody can do. You know, and I've often thought, boy, Charlie was a special guy, but he really picked a special partner too. You know, he found the soulmate who was very much like him, who understood him, and understood the message that he was trying to bring to the world. It was, you know, it's going to be it'll always be a tragedy. I'll always see that young man with such a bright future, you know, and it will, every time I think of what happened to him, it'll break my heart. And I think I'm not alone. I think there are millions of people. I heard the one of the leaders of was it Slovakia? One of the European countries. Their leader was in Washington, I guess this week, and he speaks English. And he said, you know, most people didn't know in my country who Charlie Kirk was before he was assassinated. Now everybody does. And I thought, wow, that speaks to the mistake that the left made by killing him. And they made essentially a martyr out of Charlie, and people who never would have known his message, never would have even looked into what he was doing, all of a sudden they know him now. They've read up on him. They're impressed by him, and a lot of people are changing their ways. I'm sure you've seen it online, Bill, where people have said, I wasn't going to church. I really wasn't a believer. I had let my faith lapse. And all of a sudden, Charlie's killed, and I listened to his messages, and I listened to him talk, and I realized that I'm missing an opportunity with my life. So I've gone back to God. I've gone back to Christ. I've gone back to church. And those are the things that you don't hear a lot on the media, because the media, by the way, doesn't want, mainstream media, they're not your friend. They're not your friend. They don't want you to know what's going on. They want you to believe what they're saying, but they don't want you to know what's going on, the good stuff. If they wanted you to know about Charlie Kirk, they would have told you about him before he died.
Why do you think in Cincinnati the school did it? They said, get out of here, Turning Point. And I don't think they're going to be the first and only college to do that. I think now, they wanted him gone. They've got him gone. And they probably see that Erica is right there in the wings, ready to take over. And they're going to sit there and just they're trying to wipe them off the map.
You want to bet that during the next week or so, there's another story from the University of Cincinnati saying they don't know how that got out there, and they've reversed their position, or maybe it was an erroneous message that was sent to Turning Point. I mean,
well,
the media, I'm sorry, the people who follow Charlie are going to be all over the University of Cincinnati.
Well, it very well could, they will be all over him. And it very well could be that some little rogue group out there, or one player that had the power to sit there and do that, did that all on their own. But that happens time and time and time again from the left. And I don't think it's going to be the only case of it. You've got that going. There's so many little boiling points that are going on all over the country that it's a problem.
Yeah. And you're right. You're absolutely correct. And it could have been one little hacker somewhere who said, hey, we're going to get him thrown off campus. I can do that. Before you know it, it's done. And
they type it up, and that's it.
And all of a sudden, the Turning Point people think they're thrown off campus, and it's not even real. I think this is real, but it could have been a secretary. It could have been an assistant somewhere who took it upon him or herself to make the decision for the school.
Or a professor and their secretary did it.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's see what happens down the road. The thing that has me scratching my head is how it was done. It was a complete blindside move. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't, we're thinking about, it was like all of a sudden they get an email saying you're off campus. Nah, I don't think a big university would work so, ruthlessly. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let me ask you this. University of Cincinnati, is the state red or blue?
Ohio. It's red now.
Yeah, it's red. Utah
but Cincinnati, by the way, is not. Cincinnati is
it's blue. Yeah, it's a metropolitan area, and it is. But I'm just saying, some of these targeted places are in red states.
Yeah, well, I don't think that means a heck of a lot. I mean, like if you look at Pennsylvania, it went red last election. It went Republican, but yet you go to Pittsburgh, it's blue. You go to Harrisburg, it's blue. You go to Philadelphia, it's blue. You got to scratch your head and say, how did we manage that?
Pennsylvania is kind of a unique bird because, you got those major metropolitan areas where, that's the bed of liberalism, but it's more, it's big enough to where they hold those seats, but the I guess the heart of the state is red. Always has been, always will be.
Other stuff we're going to talk about today. This is our Saturday show. Saturday shows are a little looser than some of our other shows because it's Saturday. It's the weekend, and everybody's working for the weekend, right? You see where C-SPAN had C-SPAN is usually very neutral about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they take calls. They do like a talk show, but the host essentially says, okay, let's go to our Democrat line. They press the button, and the Democrat says his or her piece. It wasn't quite the case yesterday. They went to the Democrat line. Well, here's how it went.
David in Maryland, Democratic caller. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me on. I think that, Comey, his record speaks for itself. He was a very honorable man who served his country. He did everything by the book. I think he was the prime example of someone you want to direct the FBI. Currently we have Kash Patel, who I think is a complete idiot. He's sick. He's a sick man in that position and unqualified. And for Trump to go after Comey at this point is very obvious, the trail that led up to this and his feelings about Comey. And the only mistake Comey ever made was getting involved with Trump.
Well, David, how do you respond to this? This is the Associated Press back in 2019. According to Inspector General Watchdog, Comey violated FBI policies in handling of memos. And this is what the Inspector General found. Violated FBI policies in his handling of memos documenting private conversations with President Trump. The Watchdog office said Comey broke Bureau rules by giving one memo containing unclassified information to a friend with instructions to share the content with a reporter. Comey also failed to return his memos to the FBI after he was dismissed in May of 2017, retaining copies of some of them in a safe at home, and shared them with his personal lawyers without permission from the FBI. Goes on to say the report is the second in as many years to criticize Comey's actions as FBI director, following a separate Inspector General rebuke for decisions made during the investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. It is one of multiple Inspector General investigations undertaken in the last 3 years into the decisions and actions of Comey and other senior FBI leaders. Now, David, you said Comey didn't make any mistakes.
Say something? Yeah. Okay. Well, what I like to say is that's course of doing business. Okay. And when Trump had all those documents in his house, Florida, Mar-a-Lago home, what about that? Did that ever get followed up on? Okay. What about all the things that he has done, making his own Bitcoin, about going after his political enemies? What about his selling cars from Elon Musk on the White House lawn? If any other president, especially Obama, if he did that, what would we be hearing from the Republicans?
Okay, that's David, the Democrat from Maryland, talking with C-SPAN host Greta Brawner, who I think did a pretty decent job. Usually they're a little more neutral. She kind of leaned a little bit to the right there. But I'd like to talk to David about his other questions. First of all, the Bitcoin, that was a private business. That wasn't the president doing that. And by the way, he has the right to do that. His company has the right to generate Bitcoin. He wasn't doing it as president of the United States. But if you were paying attention, you'd know that. Also, you talk about him selling cars on the White House lawn with Elon Musk. No, actually what he did is he bought a car from Elon Musk on the White House lawn and gave it to his staff. That's what he did. He wasn't selling the car. And you talk about Obama. Obama is one of the only presidents to have sent a cruise missile on a U.S. citizen. On a U.S. citizen. He knew he was doing it, and he did it. So, Saint Barack is not the saint that you think he is, and dare I say, the evil Donald Trump is not as evil as you think he is, too. I'm just saying, David.
Well, yeah, but that's what, if you hit them with, even if you hit him with that, he'd come back with another list of, well, they play that
But
what
it's-
if game, what about game,
Well,
That's all they do.
What do they say? Mar-a-Lago. This
Yeah.
obviously says to me this guy is not paying attention. He doesn't know what happened to Mar-a-Lago. The FBI did not have the right to do what they did. They
didn't.
They went into his property. They went into his wife's lingerie drawer in a bureau in her bedroom. They went through everything, and they staged a photo op. Do you remember that, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
They placed documents on the floor that weren't
They
documents
laid them out on the floor, yeah.
as if it was something that Trump had done. And Trump had not done that. They had been locked away in a safe. No. Mar-a-Lago was wrong. And by the way, David, people are going to probably go to jail eventually for Mar-a-Lago for having done that. I'm talking about it may affect Christopher Wray. It may affect Comey. It may affect Merrick Garland down the road. These indictments are the beginning. The ones you saw this week are the beginning. They're not the end.
No, they're going to keep on coming. The Democrats are going to keep pushing the Epstein thing. And, they pride out a few wins here and there in special elections and the reason they get those wins, and this is actually the fault of the Republican base, and that is special elections, most people blow them off. They don't go do them. Democrats do. And so if only 10% of the base is out there voting, but they're all Democrat, they win by a landslide. And they take a seat, and that's happened. The Epstein files are probably going to be voted on by Congress here shortly.
I think that's a distraction myself.
Well, I think it's a distraction and a crowbar. And, they're trying to do that to distract and pry away seats and try to do different things because it goes to the Senate. The same crap will happen all over again. But the evidence is not there against Trump. It's there.
Yeah, that's true.
Against, people like, Bill Clinton, to name one.
And speaking of Clinton, Bill, I like that. Speaking of Clinton, Bill,
Hillary?
Hillary, it was revealed, in the indictment against James Comey. They reference, let me read the line if I can. It's a little faded here. It says, if I can get this, in part one of the indictment, on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James B. Comey Jr., did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. Senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James B. Comey Jr., had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning Person 1. Well, it has been revealed that Person 1 in that indictment is Hillary Clinton. You may have noticed during this week, you saw more of Hillary this week than we've seen in the last 6 months. All of a sudden, she's on television everywhere. She's trying to get people she's trying to rebuild that sympathy army out there. People, oh, there's Hillary. This is good to, remind people, I'm still here. I'm still your Hillary. And I think it's because she realizes maybe one of the next indictments coming down the track is an indictment against her.
As well it should be. But there's still a lot to be unraveled, in that story with, in regards to Epstein. Do you think they're going to, I think there's like 100,000 documents. Isn't that what's left?
For what, Epstein?
Yeah.
I just think that it's all noise. I think that they very easily could have given us a lot of this information at the end of Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, and they didn't. If you remember, when she was found guilty and sent to prison, nothing was released. We got nothing. No names, no documents. They didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. It was just, that was that. Go on your merry way. But I think that I think the people that should be worried, Bill Clinton. I think they're maybe
Right.
Prince. What is it? Prince Philip? Not Prince Philip.
Andrew?
Andrew. Yeah. He's got some problems.
Yeah, he showed up again. Again, more documents that he's in. Yeah, the one thing that we know, and maybe the left doesn't know, but it's been stated time and time again, proven time and time again, Trump is not in, he's mentioned because he knew him, but actually there was, something that came out about a week ago that Epstein wanted rid of Trump because he couldn't be coerced or come over to the dark side. And, Trump didn't go to the island. And, when he was on the Lolita the one time, because he had a broken down plane, needed to hop a flight up
to New Jersey.
east. Yeah. Nothing happened on that flight. He kicked people out of Mar-a-Lago because of that. All this taint that is on Trump is Democrat taint.
Yeah.
It's lies and misfabrications.
Well, they have
doing
nothing else right now.
Doing again.
They have nothing else right now.
Well, you know what they're going to try to do again because their little mouthpiece. What's her name on The View? Whoopi, the cushion, the noise cushion. Yeah, she's going. We ought to think about the 25th Amendment. Oh, gee, there's a brilliant original idea, Whoopi. But for her to mention that means that's gonna be the thing that Hakeem and everybody that's Democrat will go, yeah, we got to use it against Trump. He's not crazy. He's not senile. He's not a criminal. He's not guilty of anything. He's guilty of being accused by the Democrats of a lot of things that never came to fruition. And even the things that they tried to get him on and, they got a ruling against, like the thing with, what's her name, that lady, that nothing ever happened, but they changed the law and the statute of limitations to try to sit there and go after Trump.
Max,
and then they changed it back.
Eugene
Carroll,
yeah. Hey, listen, let's like and share the show if you would. Like and share our program. Also, if you want to contact either one of us or both of us, mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. The FBI, another FBI director who is maybe in trouble is Christopher Wray.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether you heard about this, but he denied that there were any undercover officers on the grounds of the Capitol on January 6th. Now, I want you to understand something. He's parsing words. The FBI, they actually train their people, and sometimes it takes months to go undercover. So they actually have a category of agents who are qualified to go undercover. Then there are plain clothes people, and that's just any FBI agent who takes off his his suit and puts on some weekend clothes and goes out and mixes in with the crowd. That's plain clothes. He's parsing words when he's testifying. Listen to this.
Things here, and please don't distract here because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
I find that kind of a remarkable statement, Director. At this point, you don't know whether there were undercover federal agents, FBI agents in the crowd or in the Capitol on January 6th.
I say that because I want to be very careful. There have been a number of court filings related to some of these topics, and I want to make sure that I stick within what's in.
I understand that, but I thought I heard you say you didn't know whether there were FBI agents or informants or human sources in the Capitol or in the vicinity on January 6th. Did I misunderstand you? I thought that's what you said.
Well, I referred very specifically to undercover agents.
Yeah. And so are you acknowledging then there were undercover agents?
as I sit here right now, I do not believe there were undercover agents on scene.
I mean, do you hear that? He's doing this under testimony, and I guess technically he probably is covering his fanny, but he's not answering the question honestly.
Right.
What the senator was asking when he said undercover was, what we would call plainclothes people out there. And come to find out now, there were like 250 of them out there. I mean, these people are shameless. And people say, well, why did Trump pick Kash Patel as the FBI director? Because the previous FBI directors he had, Comey and Wray, were out for themselves, and they weren't on his side. They were not on the side of the president. When you're working in the administration for the president of the United States, you're supposed to be part of his team. The media would like you to think, oh, my God, he's trying to influence the people in his administration. You're damn right, because he was voted into office. You see? And when he's voted into office, the people voted him in because of his policies. And if he's trying to implement them, he's looking for people who can do that. I hear these damn guys in the press, Bill, these MSNBC schmucks and stuff. Oh, he's trying to influence the choosing of this or the picking of that. That's his job. He doesn't make every decision as the president. He can't. He's the president. It's a big government. If you've learned anything right now, you've learned that our government is massive, right? He can't make all the decisions himself. So he has got to make sure that the people who make those sub-decisions, the decisions below him, are on his page. He didn't do it too well the first time around, and he got screwed by some people who sold themselves to him and then turned around and shivved him in the back. So right now, the media is a little ticked off because he's got people like Kash Patel. He's got people like Tulsi Gabbard. He's got people who are actually doing what they said they would do for him.
And who are the people that the left is attacking now? Kash Patel, Tulsi.
Yeah.
Bongino has been kind of in the background. I haven't heard anything negative recently about him or heard from him.
Well, he's not a department head, so maybe that's why. He's the
Could be.
Deputy director of the FBI, so that could be it. It's very interesting, Bill. This is going to be tumultuous over the next few months because they haven't got a platform. The left hasn't got a platform. I do think, Bill, we're getting ready for some violence in the streets because
I
it's their
so.
playbook.
Yeah, what is it? I just closed everything, but I can go right back to it.
Well, I mean, their playbook.
But there was Antifa.
Their playbook is when you haven't got something to sell, burn it down.
Yeah, I was looking at a story about Antifa where the Antifa terrorists dressed in war gear. They've been seen unloading supplies outside Chicago ICE facility.
Unbelievable.
Marxist terrorists scream, shoot the blankers at ICE agents. And these guys, when you say war gear, they've got all the vests, they've got all the paramilitary stuff. What are they preparing for?
Well, not only that, but that you have to ask yourself, who's funding it? That stuff is expensive. You ever try to buy bulletproof vests? Or armor? It's expensive.
Well, to be honest with you, there needs to be an investigation into that. And I don't think it's just Soros. I think, quite honestly, it's directed by a party. I think it's money that comes from the taxpayers. You and me are paying for, our own death sentence from these guys because they are getting ready to break all hell on the nation.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen soon, folks. I don't want to frighten you, but I do think that their only option right now is to cause upheaval and commotion and chaos. Let me tell you what they hope. If they can cause problems now, and if people die in these riots, it gives sympathy to their side, and they think that they can actually come out stronger in the midterms. Well, we got to defeat that fascist dictator Trump who squelched that riot in Chicago by killing those terrible. I mean, they will do something to make it sound like Trump was wrong and had no business trying to protect the streets of Chicago. This is vile, Bill.
No, yeah, it is. Everything that they do is they do bad. They blame it on Trump. They sit there and everything that they cast out there, all the negative things, the Nazism, everything, the signs of fascism. Well, it's everything they're doing. But they say it's Trump because a lot of people are blind. They hear it from the news. They go, well, the news said it so it must be. But if you would step back from the TV and start to look around and read the writing on the wall, you'd see that it's all in blue and that writing is coming from you.
If you question where the left is, and you probably have seen how the White House treats the Associated Press because they are notoriously leftist now. I mean, they don't even try to hide it. I want to read you this story here. This came across this morning. It says, Assata Shakur, a fugitive black militant sought by the U.S. since 1979, dies in Cuba. That's the headline. Now, let me tell you the true story, in which they should have said, Joanne Chesimard, killer of New Jersey State Trooper, dies in Cuba. That's what they should have said. But they didn't say it. They made it sound like she was some sort of hero, fugitive black militant activist.
Well, they're trying to radicalize black people again.
Assata Shakur, Bill. They give her her new name, the one she picked when she was in Cuba on the run. But what she did was she and some of her cohorts were, I guess, in May of 1973, Chesimard and two others were pulled over by New Jersey State Police for having a broken taillight. I mean, you have a broken taillight, you pull over, you cooperate, you get a ticket, you go on your way. Now, a gunfight ensued, and one of the troopers, Werner Forster, was killed. Another trooper was wounded. That this Forster, the New Jersey State Trooper, they forget about him. I mean, hell, that was 1973. That was 52 years ago. Who the hell cares? Well, his family cares. The people who had to grow up without a dad or a husband, they care. It's just because time has passed shouldn't make it less of a terrible crime. But in our society, the way our media functions, hell, if it happened 2 weeks ago, we should have forgotten. It was no big deal. It was only Charlie Kirk getting shot. And, a lot of things have happened since then. This is how our media, our left-leaning media, and I think it's intentional, Bill. I think their philosophy is you keep the news headlines moving quickly, fastly. Don't let people think too much about the stories. Don't let them understand what really happened. Just keep throwing stuff at them. Do you remember when we were talking, it was 2 years ago, about the fires in Maui, that terrible fire that killed all those people in Maui? I mean, that was a big story, and we thought, boy, there's got to be a lot of follow-up here. It faded away like somebody took the control volume on a radio and just turned it down.
We don't talk about the balloons. We don't talk about Chinese buying farmland close to military, bordering military bases.
Yep.
I sit there. There's still something going on with the gas prices out there that is beyond Trump, but they blame it on him. We don't talk about the fires in Los Angeles. They're still going on. We don't talk about the droughts out there. They're still going on. We don't talk about...
Yeah, Bill, there were people who still can't rebuild on their property. I think they've had 4 building permits permitted since the fires.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are still screwed. And do you remember when Trump went out there and he sat him in a round table and Karen Bass said, "Oh, we're going to expedite everything." Horse pucky.
That was because the camera was on. She
Yes.
had to say something on the camera and look like she's in charge, but she's probably off vacationing somewhere. And when a mic's in front of her face, well, it's Trump's fault, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. You got to get rid of this guy. Yeah, because he's getting in her business. And by the way, have you noticed Gavin, because he's been in the news a long time, and he even to say, just to get his name and voice out there, he'll say something totally stupid. I hope he knows it's stupid, but I've listened to his voice, and this is just my observation, but it's not a sore throat anymore, and it's not an overtalked voice. It is getting a real, almost like throat cancer garble.
I haven't paid too much. Actually, I'll be honest with you, Bill, when I hear that doofus talk, even if I don't touch a volume control, I turn it off in my head, because he hasn't seen a camera or a microphone that he doesn't love. I mean, if you want him to come over to your house, set up a camera and a mic, odds are he'll be there. That's how he is. And no, he comes over and he talks like he's an equal to the president. Man, California, you picked an empty suit when you picked him to be governor. Holy smokes.
What he's realized is that he doesn't have to have any substance. See, now Trump has substance. There's a difference. But he will sit there and go on a tirade and say something stupid, and he gets called for it being stupid. And then he goes and says something else, gets you off the focus. So back to your initial thing, they say a lot of things, but there's a reason for that. Because they're little like when you're walking through the forest. You may not remember every tree that you carved a notch in, but it's a trail, and it's a memory marker. That's what they're doing. They're trying to build up all these stories and keep it going, and then at some point in time, a Pelosi will come along, and it's all part of their smear campaign. Well, you remember blah, 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 all this, and it's all BS that they're spewing out there. Nothing of substance.
You know, if you've ever listened, if you're new to our show, I would suggest you make it a habit, because if things get a little testy out there, we'll do our very best to give you an honest evaluation of what's going on. You may not get that from mainstream media. You might get it from some of the news channels, but a lot of the news sources, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, not so much. It isn't going to happen.
Jimmy Kimmel, he made news.
I was going to save that for after the commercial break, Bill. I have that right here on my
commercial break.
Yeah, let's that's a tease in our business. Now you're wondering what we're talking about. You'll have to pay attention and come back after the commercial break. Like and share our show if you would. Like and share our program. Also, it's mail@jimandbill.com. Mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. Okay, we're back. Now you can talk about what you were saying about Jimmy Kimmel.
Well, he said what he said about Charlie Kirk. Now, of course, then they took him off the air, which I think, thinking about it, was a publicity stunt. He had low ratings. He had maybe sometimes less than 1 million people.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a lot, but it's not in television national network.
Right.
He was the lowest. He was the pond scum below the pond scum.
Yes.
He sucked. But all he did, these not late night talkers, they think it is a platform for them to spew their negativity, and it's their constitutional right. No, it's not your freedom of speech right. Yeah, you got freedom of speech, but it is not a platform for the Democratic left. But they all do it. He was obviously the worst. Sadly, Kirk was assassinated, and he made fun of it. Of course, he came back with crocodile tears because the outcry from the public, and it was, and they started canceling their Disney subscriptions and everything, and he came back. And all that notoriety, you would have thought that he had a great audience, and he got back and he did his crocodile tears, but he sat there and said, "We've got millions of people that tuned in." It was 1.7. That's not millions. But as I said, just like bad gas, this too shall pass. Apparently it did. He's down 70%. It was a sugar high, bad gas, whatever you want to call it. He is below what he was before.
But you don't hear that on the mainstream media. What you hear is Sinclair Media folded and are bringing Jimmy Kimmel back, which says to me, A, it was not a political decision. It was a business decision on the part of Sinclair. They didn't consult with the FCC or President Trump. They did it on their own. Now, Sinclair is bringing him back because they looked at probably the first night's ratings and thought, hey, we're missing out on some opportunity to make some money here. We got to get back. It was a dollars and cents move. Now, Sinclair, they're late to the game because by the time they got back, which was probably last night, the numbers were already down 70%. 70% from the first night. So there was this curiosity factor that Bill was talking about, like, oh, I want to see what he's going to say that first night where everybody tuned in. And then they realized, well, this is why I don't watch the show. And they went back to bed, So
remember the old bad breath commercial? Anderson, you may fire me for this, but you have bad breath.
You're fired.
Yeah. Well, whoever the executive was at Sinclair that said, yeah, you know what, bring him back.
Yeah.
You might fire me for this, but bring him back. Well,
you're fired.
See you later. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you,
Well, they've already made the decision. I don't know whether Next Star is back. I didn't see that. Maybe they are too. I don't know.
They're probably going, oh, boy, forget that.
Maybe they figure that they're paying or they're already obligated to carrying certain programs, and when they fill it in with something else like the dating game or something, they got to pay for it. They got to pay to air it.
You know what I'd do? I think they would get more listeners with a pay per inquiry show. Do you need siding on your house? Well, hang on. We'll explain how our siding's better than anybody else's.
Yes.
We've got an interview from a little old lady from Pasadena.
I love my siding. It's the best siding I've ever had. I've owned this house for 40 years. Yeah.
But she'd get better ratings than Kimmel right now.
Probably.
I'm just saying that's all there is, to say on that.
Another little tidbit of news that I thought was interesting. You know what happened yesterday? President Trump ordered the declassification of Amelia Earhart's records. Mm-hmm. Everything they have on Amelia Earhart, just go ahead. Take a look. See what you can find.
They did find, they actually finally found her, I believe, not too long ago.
Well, I don't think so. That was one person claiming they found something from the plane, but...
Okay, there was a story saying that they did, so who knows?
By the way, I've heard... every time there's a Discovery Channel documentary on Amelia Earhart, I'm a sucker. I have to watch it. I wonder what's going to happen here. And they lead you up for the whole hour, like 50 minutes. You think, oh, they're going to find something of substance. And then in the last 10 minutes, they destroy everything by saying, well, it really wasn't. It was a bottle cap that was left behind by some tourist in 1954, and it wasn't her airplane. I don't know. Some people say she was actually working for the U.S. government and was photographing Japanese bases in the South Pacific, and that the Japanese
maybe
knew
we'll
it.
Find that out.
The Japanese supposedly knew it, and some people speculate she was shot down. I don't know. Some people actually say she actually landed in a water landing off one of those islands in the South Pacific, and was, without food or water, and literally just, she ended up dying, malnutrition and dehydration.
It's all guesses, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read things that say, I heard the water landing and that they found remnants that suggest that. See, I don't know. Maybe this will clear up some of it. But I would think that if you did a water landing, you landed off some island, she was a pilot. You got to have some knowledge there and a little ingenuity. Mm-hmm. You could find a way to, make the water work and, find a way to eat and maybe even go and rescue some equipment off the plane to where you could do something, some way, somehow.
And she had, I guess, one of the best navigators. What was his name? Frank something or other? I should know these things because, like I say, watch all these things. She was flying a very well-constructed airplane, twin engine. You know, the radio was as sophisticated as you could get in 1937. And she and her, Fred Noonan was her navigator. And he was supposedly maybe the best out there because they had to be very careful. You know, when they left to cross the Pacific, there wasn't a lot of margin for error. If you were off by a couple of degrees, you might miss your next landing target by, 600 miles. And all of a sudden you find yourself running out of gas with no place to land. So you had to have a really strong navigator. And apparently Fred Noonan was that. But who knows what happened? Some people think that they actually were held prisoner by the Japanese throughout the World War II.
See, I think if that were the case, at this stage of the game, I think Japan would have given that up.
You
and
think?
We would know. Yeah, I think so. I mean, some secrets you keep, some you don't. Unless there was something, that was so disgustingly vile, people don't need to know it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. The whole flight thing always drew attention to me that there was more to that flight than what met the eye.
Mm-hmm. Hey, one other thing, Bill. Did you hear what happened? President Trump was at the UN this week.
Mm-hmm.
And, the elevator, they turned it off. As soon as he stepped on the elevator, escalator. I'm sorry, escalator. Somebody shut it off. That wasn't an accident, folks. That thing runs all day long. He and his wife walked to it. As soon as they step foot on it, somebody pulls the plug on it and it stops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know about
Which is
that.
dangerous in and of itself.
Yeah. And then they turn off the teleprompter as he's getting ready to do his speech, and that wasn't an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Then we find out yesterday a Trump administration official was physically assaulted by a deranged leftist inside the United Nations Thursday afternoon during the gathering of the UN General Assembly. An official working in international relations for the Department of Health and Human Services was in New York City serving in a support role for HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy and the department's leadership team at the UN General Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
It says here, an HHS official was followed into a bathroom, recorded, physically assaulted, and verbally accosted by a deranged leftist at the UN who somehow entered the venue past multiple layers of security. See, this drives me nuts. This is the Secret Service, man. Anybody who's around our president officially should be protected by the Secret Service. I mean, the whole entourage should be protected. This guy goes into the men's room, and he was verbally accosted. What if the guy had a gun on him and shot him? What would they say? Oh, I don't know how they got by our security. I do. It's porous. And you better get your gluteus maximus together and start doing some serious protection. So anyway, I guess they found the guy and they arrested him, the guy who did it. And but he'll get a slap on the wrist. It's the UN. He'll get off. He'll be told, "Don't do it again. You were a naughty boy," and that's
you
that.
bad boy, you.
Yes. Anyway, my friend, it's a Saturday. I'm all done. You got anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was trying to find a story. I saw it earlier, but I thought it was like on one of the conservative sites. I guess it's not. But basically, the story is, you've got transgenders out there that are basically, there's a group that are getting to wage war, and it gets down to the point that it sounds like that you got a transgender army, and the FBI has no way of knowing how to track and counter these people. It's almost like they were bred to be kind of a counter and fighting race, if you want to call it that.
I think that they're being, if they are being taught to be violent, I don't think they ever really know that. These are the same people, by the way, who they'll do something like shoot up a building and then they kill themselves.
Well, I think it gets down to, we kind of talked about it yesterday, where with medicines and drugs, and there's things that you do. And you got to go back to, I think it was Harvard. There was a study that was done about they wanted to do a thing on transgender, and where they played, with science, and Mother Nature, to sit there and see what would happen when you turn. They had two male subjects to turn them into women. They both committed suicide. But, you think about that as you grow up just as a male or as a female, you've already got a volatile chemical reaction going on in your body as you mature and develop into adulthood. Imagine if you crash these two things together and what you get. And I think
what happens if you're a well-meaning transgender, a person who thinks they're a transgender, and they decide to take the chemicals that have been prescribed to them, thinking that they're going to do one thing, when in reality, the chemical is not designed to do what they think it's designed to do, but is actually designed to do something more nefarious.
Well, you take into account, too, that there are certain emotional rages that women can only have that men don't. There are certain physical rages that men have that women don't have. But you combine those two things together in one body, one mind, what do you get? And then maybe you induce or you put other things in there. You've got this thing going on in your body, your mind, that you don't understand or can't control. But you're taking a drug that supposedly keeps it in check.
Well, think about it, Bill. It makes you do. Apparently, it makes some of these people do things that are abhorrent. I mean, they commit murder easily. Mm-hmm. Easily, they'll shoot somebody without thinking about the consequence, and then they will do the other thing that is abhorrent to us: is take our own life.
Well, in psychiatry, I mentioned there's a drug called Latuda, and they use that for compulsive gamblers. They use that for people that are suicidal, whatever. But this drug will sit there and actually it messes with your mind and controls your thoughts. But all of a sudden, it takes all the what's the word I'm looking for? It takes the
all the controls,
off.
Yeah.
It takes the safety net off. So, you may become a sexual addict. Some people are going, well, that's great. No, not really, because there are no limitations, no barriers, no nothing. And you don't care. You might become a killing machine. You might become a compulsive gambler or drinker. And this is a legally prescribed drug, and these doctors that do things, they sit there, they go down a checklist. Well, you marked all this. Let's see what drug goes. Oh, Latuda, here you go. Take these. Get back to me if you have any problems.
Lots of times, people don't realize lots of times the doctors, the information they have on a drug comes from maybe they were taken to lunch by a salesman, and the salesman will give them all sorts of perks and bennies, nice lunch, they literally will kind of, buy them off, so to speak. Well, you need a few bucks for your new place, and we can do that. I mean, I hate to sound. It's almost like payola was in broadcasting when we were. I mean, when I was a kid, not when I was in broadcasting. It was already banned. Payola was the situation back in the 50s and 60s where record companies would literally go to disc jockeys and say, "We want you to play our song, and we'll give you $10,000 or." A trip to Hawaii or whatever.
Or that car that you really wanted, you're going to get it.
Yeah. And that's what happened. What happened, they changed the whole way that records were allowed to be played on radio stations, because instead of having the disc jockey pick the music for his show, all of a sudden now you had music directors who picked the music for the station. There was more control involved, less control to the talent. And
Right. Now it's corporate.
Yep, exactly.
Another drug out there, there are people that are, I don't know the condition. I worked with two people that had it. They were charms to be around all through the month, beginning of the month all the way down to around the 20th. And then they went crazy. They were whack jobs. And sometimes these people, they get so crazy, they get off their meds. But one of the things they use to control their emotions and their anger is lithium. They would get, I think it was an injection, and they get a dose, but could only go so far. And it might be 20, 25 days. And then there were those 10 days of pure evil and hell from these people. I'm just saying, we played around with people's sexuality. And it was an experiment.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not. And then there are drugs and chemicals that are introduced that can alter your thought pattern. So have we, because that's basically where this is going, and it's something the government's really looking at, because there are actual terror groups out there that are transgender, that are getting ready to wage war. And if you look at the assassinations, murder attempts, and whatnot that have gone on, some 14 or 15 in a row, all transgender.
We could go on and on. You're absolutely correct. And you mentioned that it was an experiment. I think it was an experiment that wasn't done in a lab, but it was done in the open. They actually decided to experiment on the job, so to speak. Let's see where this goes. So you got somebody who thinks they're a transgender, prescribe this.
Well, see now, and one of the things they want to do in school, they want to do sexuality orientation, so they could sit there and do a series of questions and go, Jim, you're really there's a woman in you dying to get out. We can help you. You take this, and you can be that woman you always wanted to be.
Well, in my case, it would be a very ugly woman.
Are you talking about what was her name? Rachel Levine?
Oh my God! That was, my God. Somebody should have sat Rachel down and said, "Hey, pal. I mean, even if you think you are, you might want to reconsider just for the sake of Yeah, I think the guy's got, and I say guy because he has a family. I think he has a couple of sons.
Yeah. He was.
What do they say? I'd like you to meet my dad, mom. What do they?
I don't know. Hi, Emma. Who are you?
Exactly. I guess there are advantages. He can probably share clothes with his wife. But anyway,
that's sick.
Anyway, I'm done. Anything you want to add before we wrap this thing up?
No, I'm done. Actually, I'm dealing with. We've had power outs and internet drops here where I am today, and cellular disruption. So,
hey, we were lucky to get through this show.
I was surprised. I did have a couple of glitches, and I was like going, well, we'll see.
Yeah, we couldn't see it on our end, so thank goodness.
Yeah, as long as you didn't see it on your end. You didn't see the dancing girls back there?
No, I didn't. I would see that, yes.
Oh, it was a hell of a show, I'll tell you.
Anyway, if you want to, you can take us out in your normally cheerful way.
Hey, everybody have a great weekend. Oh, don't forget rightsideshop.com. Check us out there. Mail at jimandbill.com. With that said, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Who are we? And why are we here? Will we be welcome or possibly feared? Do we unite and stand tall as a nation of one? Or split and divide, or be mocked and shunned? Are our leaders patriotic, honest and true? Do they share our beliefs? Are they red, white, and blue? The truth is out there, you just have to search. Settle for less right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. All music the property of Jim and Bill. All rights reserved. This is CRN America.